Hello guys, I am Vitold and I have done as many of you suggested, and after riding the 1290 Super Adventure R, I jumped on an S version a few weeks later and I was conflicted if it was worth the effort, but it turned out that hell yes, it was, as this one feels very different to the R. So in this video I'll tell you what's great about this bike and why you might want to buy it. At the same time, there is a video with listed points on why this particular model may not be exactly for you, so please check that one as well to get a full perspective. And I'll say it again, here I am only mentioning the good, great and absolutely fantastic stuff. I may only occasionally not be able to stop myself from pointing to some crappy things, but to see more about that, I've worked on a separate video. And please also don't immediately get upset when seeing that one, as just like every single one of us, motorcycles aren't perfect beings, and some things may be advantages to some of us, while at the same time they can be disadvantages to others. I've officially ridden them all in the big adventure category, so I believe I may keep it very fair in here. Some aspects also have different weights to us, and the story of this KTM presents that very clearly as well. So let's get into it and start with the first point, because of which you and I myself also may really want to get this bike. It's the fabulous, amazing, insane, great, fantastic and brilliant engine all in one that's full of juice at all times and in all gears. I'm a great fan of it, and to me this is the best engine in the class right now. It doesn't have the most power on paper with 160 horsepower, as Ducati Multistrada V4 has more at 170, but sure, this KTM feels like it would kick Ducati's ass, and it's very likely that it could actually, because in the end of the day there are other aspects that influence our perception, and it's, for example, gearing, its torque and its weight of what the engine is moving. And I believe that here it's mostly about the first two. So gearing, which KTM totally nailed, and while Ducati's gears are in my opinion way too short, at least the first ones, here they are perfect in the whole range, I think. In the end of the day, I haven't even once felt like the bike was lacking anything at any kind of RPM, and also being able to roll at 60 kilometers per hour in the sixth gear and be able to gently accelerate if you want. Man, this has been possible in a BMW R1250 GS, and KTM apparently can do the same. And here's the second aspect, so torque, which justifies it. This KTM, just like the R, has 138 newtons of torque. Ladies and gentlemen, this KTM 1290 Super Adventure S is, along with the R version, the only bike in the segment, or one or two if you include BMW S1000 XR, that gives me personally that adrenaline rush when accelerating, which I do like. Only these two bikes can do that, and that impresses me. At higher revs, there is pure fire in here, and the bike is capable of lifting its wheel in the third gear in some modes, which has never ever happened on any other bike to me, just when rolling the throttle open on its own. And remember, the gears here are not exactly short, and the whole transmission works as you would want it to. Gear changes are clear, the travel of a lever is significant enough to feel it well in any boots, and quick shifter, which is an accessory option, worked 100% reliably in my case, while being quick enough at the same time. Probably it's just a tiny bit slower than the one in BMW, but it may just as well be that the lever seems to have a slightly larger travel. But this is working together perfectly in my opinion. So it's amazingly fun and I do love it. Powerful, eager to cooperate with you, gentle at low speeds, no crazy vibration, good heat management, and great flexibility. That's how I would describe this engine, because otherwise I could keep going and spitting those compliments and beautiful words, but there are other points on the list. So let's move to the second, and that's pretty cool and customizable electronically adjustable suspension. And note that it's not available in the R version, and stays unique to this S one here. Up to some point this would be a similar adjustable suspension like in other motorcycles, and I'll start with that to leave the best and unexpected for the end in this point, and I'll be brief here. There are clear modes to choose from, and I was mostly switching between comfort and street. There's also sport, which is harder but manageable, and this is worth mentioning, as in some other bikes they get so stiff that to me it is impossible to use them on public roads, at least not with some cracked teeth and spine pain. Points for that. Comfort is really comfortable, I think it lives up to the name while not becoming too jelly-like. It's actually close to getting jelly-like, and sometimes I felt it's becoming not that much composed, but on a longer trip I could live with that for the sake of its advantages in soaking up the bumps very, very nicely. However, the street mode, which is in the middle, was my sweet spot in this case. If I only had this one mode, I wouldn't feel the need of getting this electronically adjustable suspension or to adjust anything within the suspension. In fact, I mean, it's cool, but it would be for me just good enough to live with that one setting. But there are two settings that can be very cool, and they are on the list of accessories. Suspension Pro, I think it's called. It is nothing new, but it's preload that you can set, which is illustrated also as how tall the bike is sitting, and you may adjust it, while the other thing is something very, very unusual, and it's called anti-dive function. It's not exactly unusual, but having this as a separate option seems to be. You may switch it off, by the way. What it is supposed to do is to prevent the front suspension from diving. And does it do it? No, it doesn't. But I do believe that it's limiting it to the point of me not noticing any super weird behaviors when braking with the front brake. I haven't noticed the same dive as in all other bikes, with an exception of BMW motorcycles because of their telelever front suspension in the big GS. So my conclusion is that there is something in this KTM that works. And this helps you also to keep the bike stable when its and also your weight is shifting, for example, when braking. So you've got more control and you can feel more confident, and I appreciate that. Moving to the third point, it's a lot of electronic gadgets that make the bike feel very fresh and modern. It's pretty much everything that today's motorcycles can have, including cornering LED lights, including cornering ABS, traction control, a quick shifter as an option, a switch that you can program as a shortcut to some options in the menu, heated seats and grips as options as well, but hell, you've got to pay for what you've got to pay. There is a front radar with the adaptive cruise control in case any of you want to go to sleep while riding. I don't recommend doing that, so I'm thinking I'm missing a point kind of having this option in the bike, but it's there. Anyway, you may play with the suspension in many ways. Same with riding modes that visibly influence also traction control. And man, I'd say this, keep it in sport and beautiful things will happen. Just make sure that you've got good tires on it. The ones that I had on the bike, Mitas tires, original stock Mitas tires, I think they were rubbish. Instead of pulling wheelies, like I wanted, the bike was mostly drifting around, spinning its rear wheel at speeds at which no other bike has done that before in my case. The overall feel is that this is a very modern and up-to-date technology in this bike, and it gives me a satisfying feeling actually. This lets me move smoothly to the fourth reason, which is the bike's display with adjustable angle also. That's actually not the point, but what really impresses me is the quality of the image and animations on that display. It works instantly also after you switch the ignition on, unlike in Triumph and, for example, Honda nowadays. There aren't many options of customizing this particular screen unless you switch to the rally mode, which is another optional extra. But the menu overall is clear in terms of operating it and also in terms of visual experiences. The text is large enough, nothing is choppy here, the layout is good, and now the best, those animations and pictures with explanations of certain functions. This is gold, and no one, I think, has done it so far in this category, so great freaking job KTM here. Just take a look at how easy to quickly understand all this is. And it's, I believe, the only system that tells you which way to adjust certain options to have them the way you want them. It's not just A, B, and C, or 1, 2, 3, and then you need the user's manual to know if one is the most intense intervention or it's the lowest amount of that. This is brilliant. It shows dedication of the manufacturer, it shows their understanding what we all need, and also it shows their will to comply with it. So great stuff, again, KTM. And about that, it also connects with and sort of translates into the fifth point, which is image. This can be a bit mixed, I think, because of some reliability issues that I've also experienced myself while riding the brand new R version not long ago. But what I actually mean here is that KTM gives you that image of a tough bike and a tough rider, or a tough bike for a tough guy, and I get it, and I buy it myself. I've got to express that I personally prefer it over, for example, a beautiful and soft Ducati, and for example a rough and precise but pretty German BMW that also creates disgusting things like BMW X7 or the new BMW i7 series. My goodness, phew. KTM with their orange color, with clear identity, not getting involved in some political crap in their social media. And also, this is largely revolving around the aspect of off-roading, which I've actually put as a sixth point here on the list of things of why we might want to buy this 1290 Super Adventure S. And yet I do understand, and I know and have to tell you that unless you're pretty short, the R version could and probably should do it better. It's likely got better suspension for any kind of off-road games, because it's got longer travel, more ground clearance, more narrow front wheel. On the other hand, here it's still generally the same bike as the other one, and SAS, as some like to call it. This version has 20 centimeters of wheel travel in the front and in the rear, and just over 22 centimeters of ground clearance, which is, I think, okay, and it's a lot. It's way more than 18.5 in a BMW R1250 GS. So yes, likely it can go off-road and will do at least as good as others in the category, and maybe better due to that ground clearance, which is larger than in most other motorcycles. To me, off-road capabilities don't matter that much, as I wouldn't feel comfortable risking damaging such an expensive machine. And there are also way better choices than those huge motorcycles going in hardcore off-roading places. More manageable in terms of weight and tires as well. And what I like is that I know that I can ride over a large curb, and this is fine, and this is enough, and this is useful to me. But what I like way more, and actually I'm thinking that I might have just as well put it as a second point on this list, even though the order actually doesn't matter, is that once you give this bike a proper exhaust, it sounds great. A V2 engine is the best when it comes to motorcycle sound, I think, and I love their sound myself very much. There aren't many choices here anymore in terms of V2 engines, with Ducati leaving their V2 engines only in smaller capacity bikes. I'm very happy that KTM gives us a huge, because 1301 cubic centimeter engine in a V2 setup, that's a pure pleasure to listen to once you get rid of that 5-liter or 10 or 15 liter Coca-Cola can there. This sounds terrible as stock, and I think it should be illegal to kill beautiful sound the way KTM had to have done it. But I understand regulations are to make our lives less attractive, less enjoyable, and less encouraging to keep living, obviously. But we can fix it, and we should fix it. The last point on the list, which is at the same time 8th point, is the design. And I'm aware that some of you will not agree, and sometimes you've got to be in the minority or in majority, who knows. Well, I'm not a fan of the sometimes maybe a little bit weird front face of the Super Adventure that looks like some bug, but the overall shape I very much do like, and along with the proportions of the whole motorcycle. And it's especially valid for the more, in my opinion, muscular S version with the smaller wheels, and that is sitting a little bit lower to the ground. Originally, it also has a taller windshield and looks a bit heavier, more bulky, thanks to, and I like that in terms of these motorcycles. And I also like some of the details. So my conclusion is that its design can be really appealing. So here you have the complete list, which is not complete if you don't share your reasons for buying the 1290 Super Adventure in the S version. So please go ahead and help other generations to come to head the right way. And now let's meet in the video about what's exactly not so great about this bike, or rather what may or may not be that good, depending on your perspective. See you there!